the reflection that shouldn't exist. Julian Gray had always found silence comforting, until it started staring back at him. Living in the moss-covered town of Rainwick was like existing in a foggy dream you couldn't wake up from. Julian's days were gray, his evenings muted by the sound of steady drizzle on the roof. His mother worked long shifts at the hospital, and his friends often drifted in and out like passing clouds. But the one constant in Julian's life was the mirror in his bedroom, the tall antique one with the cracked wooden frame his grandfather had left behind. It wasn't just a mirror. It was unsettling. For years, he'd noticed oddities, delays in reflections, a strange haze, the way the light bent wrong around its edges. He had convinced himself it was just an old mirror. Warped glass. Nothing serious. Until one night, just after midnight, Julian stood shirtless in front of the mirror, wiping steam from his face after a hot shower. He blinked. Once. Twice. The figure in the mirror didn't. He stared, unsure. Then, impossibly, the reflection tilted its head, a fraction of a second before he did. Julian fell backward onto the bed, heart thundering in his chest. That night, he barely slept, the whisper through the glass. From that day, Julian avoided looking into the mirror unless absolutely necessary. But no matter how hard he tried, his eyes would always drift toward it, drawn to the silent threat waiting on the other side. Then the tapping began. Every night, exactly at 3:03 a.m., three distinct knocks echoed through the room, soft but deliberate. Tap, tap, talp. At first, he thought it was the wind, then maybe the old pipes, but always came from the mirror. One night, he stood silently by his bed, watching, and sure enough, the knocks came again, but this time he saw the reflection's hand move, tapping from the inside. He ran out of the room, slamming the door behind him. When he returned in the morning, he found the mirror fogged up with something written in the mist. Let me out. The door appears. Julian couldn't take it anymore. He covered the mirror with a blanket, duct tape, even pushed a bookshelf in front of it. Nothing stopped the tapping. Nothing stopped the whispering. Then one night he lost control. Screaming in frustration, he hurled a heavy brass lamp at the mirror. The glass didn't just crack, it shattered like ice, and behind it wasn't his wall. There was a door, a dark, wooden door embedded in black stone. It had no handle, just a brass keyhole glowing faintly as if waiting. The room fell silent. Julian approached, trembling, and reached out. His fingers barely touched the wood when the door slowly creaked open. Beyond was a narrow hallway, dimly lit and whispering. The air was cold, wrong, unnatural, and standing at the far end was himself. But this Julian wasn't blinking, wasn't breathing, just smiling, a hollow, chilling smile that didn't reach his eyes. The one who crossed over. Julian backed away from the doorway, but it was too late. The other version of him, the mirror twin, stepped out into the room like he'd been waiting his entire life to be free. He looked around, stretched, cracked his neck. Finally, he said. His voice was identical, but colder, emptier. Julian tried to speak, but the moment he did, the twin lunged forward and shoved him. Julian's body went weightless. The world twisted. He landed hard, on the cold tile floor of a strange, inverted version of his bedroom. The light flickered above. Everything was the same, but reversed. And the mirror? Now he was looking out of it, from the other side, trapped in the reverse. The mirror world was a twisted reflection. Rainwick still existed, but no one populated its streets. The sun never rose. The sky was always twilight. Buildings were empty. Radios whispered nonsense. Clocks ticked backwards. Julian wandered aimlessly, yelling, crying, desperate for someone, anyone, to hear him. Then he saw the others. Faint silhouettes behind cracked windows. People staring into mirrors in horror. Some pounded on glass. Some had given up. One girl, no older than him, whispered from the other side of a mirror in a classroom. They've taken our lives. They become us. You're not alone. Lindsay's doubt. In the real world, Julian's girlfriend, Lindsay, noticed changes. Julian didn't laugh the same. He didn't touch her hand in the way he used to. He flinched when she mentioned his favorite band. He forgot their 3-year anniversary. And one morning, she caught him staring at the mirror, talking to it. She listened from the hallway. I need more time, the fake Julian said to his reflection. He's not broken yet. Her heart dropped. She texted Marcus, something's wrong with Julian. I don't think it's him. The other victims. In the mirror world, Julian met Tasha, a girl who had been trapped for 3 years. Her voice trembled as she explained. There's a network of them. The reflections. They wait until your identity is weak. When you feel lost, empty, then they take your place. Her mirror twin had replaced her the day after her 16th birthday. No one noticed, she whispered. I called out to my mom through every mirror in the house. She never looked twice. Julian wanted to scream. He wasn't crazy. He was stolen. The channel. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Marcus stumbled across a mysterious YouTube channel called Eyes Behind Glass. It only had 17 subscribers, but the videos were disturbing. Each one featured a different person, standing motionless in front of a mirror, eyes wide, expression frozen. One video showed someone who looked exactly like Julian, but his reflection was screaming. Marcus paused it. It was Julian, the real one. The resistance. Marcus didn't tell anyone, not even Lindsay. He reached out to the dark corners of the internet, forums that tracked strange happenings. He was contacted by a woman named Faye, who claimed to be part of a group called the Reflection Resistance. They believed mirror beings, echoes, were replacing people one by one. They'd traced disappearances, altered memories, even mirror blackouts. Julian's case, Faye said, was one of the clearest. They just needed a way to break the boundary. The breaking point. Julian and Tasha found a mirror in an old theater, cracked but still functional. Through it, they could see Marcus watching YouTube clips in his basement. Julian focused, pushed. Tasha screamed. Yell his name. He might hear you. Julian did. And for a moment, just one flicker, Marcus looked directly into the mirror and whispered, Julian? Then everything shattered. The mirror exploded on both sides, flinging Julian backward in the mirror world and causing chaos in Marcus's basement. The connection was made, but it came at a cost. Now, the reflections knew they'd been seen. Shards of truth. The explosion had knocked Julian unconscious. When he woke, his ears rang and dust swirled through the twilight air. The theater's broken mirror lay in jagged pieces around him, glowing faintly with something unnatural. Tasha knelt beside him, bleeding from a cut on her cheek. You did it, she whispered. He heard you. Back in the real world, Marcus stood stunned. His basement mirror had cracked down the center, and for a brief second, he had seen something inside, a hand reaching out. Then came a voice on his laptop speakers, one he didn't recognize but felt deep in his bones. We know who you are now, Marcus Rowe. He slammed the laptop shut. Lindsay's hunt. Lindsay began piecing it all together. She found Julian's old notebooks, scribbles about reflections, timelines, maps of the town with marks on every known mirror. She remembered the odd phone call a week ago when Julian had called her, but said nothing, just heavy breathing and static. Was it the real Julian? Had he tried to contact her? She couldn't shake the last words she'd overheard the fake Julian say to the mirror. He's not broken yet. Something inside her broke instead. She had to find Marcus. Echoes in the dark. In the mirror world, Tasha brought Julian to a gathering place. A broken-down church with shattered stained glass windows that cast distorted colors across the cold floor. There, a dozen others sat huddled. Victims. Each one had lost their life to an echo, a mirror double that had replaced them in the real world. Some had been trapped for years. Others had only recently arrived. A boy named Darren muttered over and over, he smiles like me. He laughs like me. But he's not me. They were all waiting for the same thing, a way out. Julian knew they didn't have much time. The password. Marcus met with Lindsay behind the town library. He showed her everything. The videos, the cracked mirror, the message he'd heard. She believed him without question. I knew it wasn't him, she said. That thing wearing his face. It isn't Julian. Then Marcus revealed what Faye had told him. There's a way to access their dimension using synchronized mirrors and the original's last recorded heartbeat. It opens a time window, only seconds long, but it's enough. They needed a password. Julian's anchor. The one word that could pull his consciousness back. Lindsay knew exactly what it was. Northwood, the name of the forest where they had shared their first kiss. The signal. In the mirror world, Julian used scraps of electronics from a broken TV and bits of glass to build a transmitter, something Phase Network had taught Tasha. It was risky. As he powered it on, Tasha and the others held their breath. A buzzing filled the air. Then a click. A voice. Julian Gray, you have 60 seconds. Julian closed his eyes and said the word aloud. Northwood. The sky above shimmered. The ground trembled. And from the shattered mirror of the church, a rift opened. Only enough for one. Julian turned to Tasha. Go. But she shook her head. You're the spark. We need you out there. He jumped. The return. Julian awoke, gasping on Marcus's basement floor. Marcus dropped to his knees, stunned. Lindsay burst into tears. You're real. Julian couldn't even stand. He felt weak, disoriented, like his body wasn't his anymore. But when he looked at the mirror on the wall, Gray was there, watching, and smiling. I'm still in here, Gray said, pressing his hand to the inside glass. You came back, but you brought me with you. Julian fell into Lindsay's arms. It wasn't over. The host. Julian began having blackouts. He'd wake up in strange places, an alleyway, the cemetery, standing in front of a mirror he didn't remember approaching. His voice sometimes sounded off. Marcus noticed it first. There's something inside you, man. He's not gone. He's inside. Julian began hearing whispers in water, seeing shadows in reflections. Sometimes he caught himself smiling without knowing why. Tasha had been right. The longer an echo stays inside you, the deeper it digs. Phase plan. Faye contacted Marcus through an encrypted channel. She wanted to meet Julian in person. She had a plan. If we can get Gray into a containment loop, we can trap him in a mirror permanently. But it has to be in the same mirror he crossed through. The original gateway. Julian paled. That was my bedroom mirror. I smashed it. Then rebuild it, Faye said. Or he'll rebuild you from the inside. Reforged glass. Julian, Lindsay, and Marcus scavenged shard from the attic. Every piece of the old mirror was cleaned, restored, and placed back into the wooden frame. They worked all night. As the final piece was inserted, the mirror pulsed just once, and Julian fell unconscious. Inside his mind, he stood face to face with Gray. You've come back to finish it? Gray sneered. No, Julian said. I've come to end it. The confrontation. The real and mirror worlds merged for exactly 3 minutes. Time slowed. Marcus set up the containment field using Faye's device, a rotating prism of glass and light. The mirror flickered like water. Julian stood before it, eyes bloodshot. Inside the glass, Gray pounded from within, trying to escape. You need me, he screamed. Here is the English translation of your story, Sogu Uftobus, the last bus. No, Julian said, lifting a hammer. He swung it once, then again, and the mirror exploded into pure light, pulling Gray inward like a vortex. When it was over, all was silent. The glass was gone, and so was Gray, but not forever. A week later, a little girl in Idaho stared into her bathroom mirror and whispered, Who are you? A second voice answered from the other side. Let me out. The Idaho incident. 1 week after Julian shattered the mirror, across the country in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, 8-year-old Emily Carter began acting strangely. Her mother, Olivia, noticed that Emily spent more time in the bathroom, whispering to the mirror and staring for hours. One night, Olivia overheard a chilling conversation. Emily, but I don't want to go. Unknown voice. You promised. It's your turn now. When Olivia burst into the room, Emily was standing perfectly still, eyes wide, not blinking. Her reflection, however, blinked once, slowly, and smiled. Reflections multiply. Julian, now back in school and trying to live a normal life, couldn't shake the feeling that Gray wasn't the end. He'd started dreaming of mirrors again. In one dream, he saw entire cities replaced, stores, streets, homes filled with smiling duplicates. People waving from reflections, crying silently behind glass. One morning, Marcus burst into Julian's room with a laptop. Dude, look at this. A Reddit thread had exploded overnight. Thousands of users were posting videos of mirror glitches, shadows moving independently, reflections delayed by seconds, some even smiling when the person wasn't. Someone posted, "The real me is behind the mirror. The one outside is lying." The Echo virus. Faye and the reflection resistance had gone dark. Julian managed to reach another member, an ex-police analyst named Clark Hensley. Clark had bad news. The mirror incidents are spreading, not isolated anymore. We've documented 127 confirmed cases in 22 states. He paused. We think it's viral, not biologically, but cognitively. A mimetic infection, like a curse. You see it, and it sees you. It spreads through awareness. Julian's stomach sank. It's not a haunting, Clark added grimly. It's a hostile takeover. Lindsay's reflection speaks. Lindsay had tried to stay strong, but her own mirror was beginning to act strange. Every night at 2:34 a.m., her reflection smiled back, even when she wasn't smiling. Then came a night it spoke. "You were always brave," it said in her voice. "That's why you're perfect." She screamed and threw a towel over the mirror. But deep down, she knew something had changed. The reflection was watching her even when the glass was covered. Echo breach. In Denver, Colorado, a teenage boy live-streamed an exorcism-style ritual trying to banish his mirror reflection. Halfway through, his camera feed distorted. The lights in his room blew out. His voice turned backward. The stream ended with him being dragged off camera. He hasn't been seen since. The video racked up 12 million views in 2 days. Thousands reported mirror anxiety, hallucinations, or waking up at night facing their own reflections, paralyzed. Julian knew what it meant. They were crossing over again. Operation Obsidian. Clark summoned Julian, Marcus, and Lindsay to a resistance meeting deep in Oregon's Mount Hood forest. There, Faye finally reappeared. She had a plan. "We've located the first known Echo Gate. Not just Julian's mirror, but the original one." She called it Obsidian Zero, a massive, ancient black mirror sealed in a bunker built during the Cold War. "We believe the mirror world is using this artifact to broadcast its frequency," she said. "If we destroy it, we might sever their control." They called the mission Operation Obsidian Dot into the bunker. The bunker was buried beneath 50 feet of concrete and steel in a forgotten missile silo. Inside, time didn't flow normally. Wakispoon. Lights flickered blue. Reflections appeared in metal, water, even shadows. At the heart of the complex was Obsidian Zero, a floor-to-ceiling slab of black mirror, humming like it was alive. Julian stepped closer and saw not himself, but hundreds of others, each staring at him with hollow, aching eyes. Some were crying, some pounding, some smiling with bloodied teeth. They were all trapped souls. The voice of the mirror. As they began setting charges to destroy the slab, the mirror spoke, not aloud, but into their minds. "You destroy me, you destroy them. Every soul, every stolen life, every forgotten child." Julian hesitated. Inside the mirror, he saw Tasha banging on the inside. "Don't do it," she mouthed. "There's another way." Faye's hand trembled over the detonator. "Julian," she whispered, "you decide. The sacrifice." Julian dropped the detonator. "No, we can't kill them to save ourselves." Faye cursed, but Marcus backed him up. "There's a rescue path," Marcus explained. "We hack the signal instead of destroying it. Reverse the resonance. Pull them out." They only had minutes before the echoes realized what was happening. Julian volunteered to stay behind, to enter the Obsidian Zero slab, serve as the anchor for the signal. He walked into the mirror. Lindsay cried out, but Julian looked back only once, smiled, and vanished. The extraction. Julian awoke inside the black mirror, a space outside time, where echoes crawled and screamed. He found Tasha first, then Darren, then hundreds more. One by one, Marcus initiated extraction from the control room above the silo. Mirrors across the world flickered, releasing souls, reverting bodies, purging reflections. The resistance cheered, but Obsidian Zero began to crack. Inside, Julian realized something terrifying. The mirror didn't just hold reflections. It fed on them. As the last soul escaped, a deep, ancient voice whispered, "You're mine now." The mirror shattered inward, trapping Julian alone. The mirror beneath all mirrors. Julian floated in a cold void. Not air, not water, something in between. He was inside the broken shards of Obsidian Zero, but it hadn't shattered like glass. It had folded inward into itself. He stood in a massive corridor of mirrors, each one displaying a world, a person, a life. He walked for what felt like days. Then he saw it, a mirror that showed himself, but as a child, crying in his room. The mirror spoke. "Before you were born, I watched you. You were always fractured, always ready." Julian realized the mirror world had been grooming him for years. The architect. At the center of the mirror dimension stood a vast cathedral made of black glass. Inside, on a throne of fractured reflections, sat the architect, a tall, faceless entity stitched together from the features of 1,000 different people. It had no voice, only thoughts. "You were the first," it said silently to Julian. "The anchor, the bridge." Julian stepped forward. "What are you?" "I am what humanity buried. Its fear of the self, its guilt, its forgotten reflections. The more you looked away, the stronger we became." Julian clenched his fists. "Let them go. You can't free what has chosen to be forgotten." Lindsay's gamble. Back in the real world, Lindsay refused to give up on Julian. She and Marcus built a device using resonance feedback based on what they had learned from Obsidian Zero. They called it the Echo Pulse. Its purpose, to send a conscious signal strong enough to reach Julian, even through the collapsing dimension. Lindsay volunteered. "It has to be me," she said. "I know his mind. I know his voice." The machine activated, and her soul was sent across the reflections. The reunion. In the mirror cathedral, as Julian faced the architect, he heard a sound he never thought he'd hear again. Lindsay's laugh. He turned, and there she was, bathed in light, crossing through a portal of memory. She ran to him, eyes full of fire. "I'm not letting you die in here." He grabbed her hand, but the architect rose, the ground splitting beneath them. "You brought the last light. Now I must extinguish it." The final battle had begun. The war of reflections. The architect summoned echoes from all corners of the mirror world. Twisted versions of everyone Julian had ever known. Friends, teachers, strangers, all lunging at them with glass-skinned fingers and emotionless faces. Julian and Lindsay ran through the shifting corridors of mirrored reality, dodging attacks, collapsing bridges of light and shadow. Julian suddenly stopped. "This place was made for memory," he said. "So maybe I can remake it." And then he turned to face the army. Julian's memory key. Julian closed his eyes. He thought of his mother's voice, of Marcus cracking jokes, of Lindsay holding his hand in the cold, of who he was before the mirror. The world trembled. The walls cracked. The cathedral of reflections began to fall apart. "You can't rewrite truth," the architect roared. "But I can rewrite myself," Julian answered. And with a scream that echoed through dimensions, he split the mirror world open from its core. Collapse and escape. The dimension was breaking. Marcus, in the control room, saw the mirrors around the world begin to melt. Not in destruction, but in transformation. They became smooth, blank glass. The threat was ending. Julian looked at Lindsay. "You need to go now. I'm not leaving without you." "You must." He kissed her forehead and pushed her back through the portal. She vanished. Julian turned to face the architect, who was now crawling, splitting into shadows. "I'm not your anchor anymore," Julian whispered. And with one final surge of light, everything shattered. The silence after. Lindsay awoke in Marcus's lab, gasping. "Where's Julian?" he asked. She looked at him and said nothing. Across the world, mirrors stopped humming. People stopped reporting strange behavior. The global fear faded. The reflection resistance was disbanded. Governments quietly shut down mirror surveillance programs. But those who had seen what really happened never forgot. and neither did she. The boy in the lake. 1 year later, in northern Maine, a couple walking their dog by a frozen lake spotted something. A boy, naked, cold, curled up beside the shore. He had no ID, no memory, but when they asked his name, he said, Julian. His eyes were different, older, haunted, and every night he would stand in front of the mirror in their guest room, staring for hours. Final reflection. Julian now lives quietly, off-grid, somewhere deep in the woods. He doesn't use phones. He doesn't go near mirrors unless he must. But he knows the war isn't truly over. Because sometimes, just sometimes, when the house is still and the night is quiet, he sees a shadow move on the other side of the glass. Not an enemy, not Gray, but himself, smiling faintly, waiting, and the whisper always returns. You came back. So will we. The end.